And welcome back to Cape Town. And as we have been saying, we are here for the Green Hydrogen Summit. And this seems to be all the rage at the moment around all matters energy. And South Africa, of course, very well positioned to take, a front runner role in this regard because of our natural endowments in terms of minerals and, of course, the mines that we have in this country who are able to produce cutting edge technology. And we continue telling the story of what is happening around green hydrogen production. And I'm joined now by Mita Misari, who is from the Priska Power Reserve and Mahlako Energy Fund. Thanks so much for stopping by to speak to us, Mita.
Thank you very much for having me, and good morning to South Africa.
All right, let's start with what it is that you do exactly.
Okay, my name is Mita Misari. I'm hail from Limpopo. I'm a founder and director of Mahlako Energy Fund, which is a 2.5 billion rand fund, which is owned 100% by black women. And we are currently developing one of the catalytic projects in South Africa called the Priska Power Reserve, which sees us with 120 megawatts electrolyzer initially, but then we've got a capacity of going all the way up to 5 gigawatts. And we've been at the forefront of the development of the energy industry in South Africa. We've got over 500 megawatts under development, and one of our pride and joy in terms of other things that we do, I'm also the chairperson of the Black Energy Professionals Association. We make sure that in everything that we do, we touch people's lives. As you know, South Africa and all these projects have been happening without the local people participating. So it is very important, and that was the reason why we created our fund, to make sure that black people are participating meaningfully in the economy of South Africa.
Black people, but you also mentioned local people. So with regard to the Priska project, for example, how are local people actually benefiting from that?
Currently, the Priska Power Reserve is 100% being developed by South Africans. Mahlako Patla Investments partnered with a company called Senec from Bloemfontein, and we are actually making sure that as part of the project, as we are developing it, we have a full dedicated team of social economic development where we are looking at how do we partner with provinces, especially with the local community, in making sure that we develop the project. And the project, some of the land that we're actually developing the project on is owned by the municipality. That means instead we are going to be paying a royalty fee to the municipality. That means the holistic community is like a shareholder in the project, unlike a fully private owned farm.
So let's talk about the green hydrogen project. What is your entity's involvement in this at this stage? And if you can just explain in layman's terms to someone sitting in Priska right now, wondering what is she talking about?
It's actually good that you asked that question, because during our launch, and especially what has been happening around those particular communities, where they've seen develop a lot of companies coming in and big monies that are being spoken about, but then they are not being affected. They don't know how are they going to benefit. We are actually currently in the development phase. We are busy with the feasibility studies. We have actually onboarded one of the leaders in the world, Group and Siemens Energy, who are helping us to make sure that we are making sure that the project is properly feasible and it's actually bankable. And at the right time, we are going to be engaging communities in terms of how can they participate in the whole value chain and the supply chain of the project. But then what we are going to do up front is we are setting up, currently we're having a lot of educational programs that are happening. We are teaching kids maths, and we are also we are partnering with the Department of Higher Education in making sure that the local Priska people are being skilled so that when the projects come to fore, they are able to participate. We've also taken on some young women onto the project as part of our development team as interns who we've partnered with the GIZ XYZ German grouping from that perspective. So we are involved in the end-to-end development. We are doing the environmental impact assessments. We are doing the geotech studies. We are looking at the civil's capacity. So as we speak now, there's no actual construction happening, and I know that the communities sometimes are up in arms because they hear us talking about all these billions, but then they don't see how themselves are going to be impacted. But then at the right time, we're going to make sure that we're going to also set up a community trust where the local communities can also participate from an equity perspective. But then we're also going to make sure that the local businesses are supported from a working capital perspective, from a skills perspective, to ensure that they are the ones who are going to supply some of the components that the project is going to be procuring.
And I think this is very important because very often we hear companies coming up and saying this is what we will do. But come the time for these projects to take off, the local communities are left behind. And inevitably you see skills being imported. And one understands, of course, that there would obviously at some point be skills that you cannot delve from the local community that you will have to import. But I think it's important that there is trust between you and the community that you will be working in. Because you spoke about leasing the land and royalties flowing from that. Sometimes that doesn't flow down to the community as well. So I think this is an opportunity to do things differently so that the community in Prieska ultimately does benefit.
I agree with you, and that's why Mahlako, as women, the company is actually named after my mom, who died at a tender age of 47, and it's owned by women who have been in everything that we do. We say, how are we impacting others? And we went out there and raised 2.5 billion rand to make sure, recently we are going to be announcing a transaction where we actually funded 300 million to a company that is women-owned to make sure that they're actually participating into this particular project meaningfully. And like I said, in the work that we have done, we saw that, all of these things have been happening and people are not benefiting. And that's why we created the Black Energy Professionals Association that makes sure that there is meaningful participation, and we actually lobby very hard. And even when people are going on about how localization is impacting on price, projects are not being able to close because of that, we totally disagree, because you cannot industrialize or reindustrialize as South Africa if you are not making sure that the local people are taken into account, if you're not making sure that throughout, we're talking about this hydrogen, but then the value chain and even is not impacted, our current people are not impacted. Even our discussions with our partners like Decent Group, we've already started engaging with them in terms of what are the components that we could look at. Even if we are starting with assembly, maybe we might not be going on full-on manufacturing, but then what are those key components that we can be localizing? So we actually, as a project, we have a proper roadmap and a procurement strategy that actually talks to that.
Mita, I tell you what, and I'm all about accountability, and I'm going to take you up on that. Let's go to Prieska, let's speak to the local community, and let's see how this works from the ground up. But thank you so much for stopping by and letting us in on what it is that you are doing. And we look forward to, the green hydrogen project overall in South Africa and seeing how it actually benefits the local communities.
No, thank you very much for having us. And we will actually take you on the challenge. And I guess the pudding, what do they say?
The proof of the pudding is in the eating. We're coming to do that.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much. Mita Mhlari is from the Prieska Power Reserve and Mahlako Energy Fund. And as you heard there, still no buildings on the ground there in Prieska. Don't get excited. It's still coming. It's a work in progress. And as soon as it does, we're going to come there to make sure that you actually reap the benefits of that as well. With that, it's back to Studio Vusiwe standing by with your sport.